Well, welcome back everyone, and this video is going to be something very special because I got something very cool to show you, and that is my 1800 litre cold water marine aquarium. I've been talking about this on and off since the start of my YouTube channel, and it's finally come the day to show it to you guys. Now through the video I'm going to show you obviously the fish I've got in here currently, and I've also had this tank now for probably about four maybe 5 years. So as you can imagine, I've had a lot of other species in here. So I'm going to jam in loads of really cool footage I've taken since having it of all the fish. I got some really cool feeding videos that you'll love to see. So I'll basically jam in loads of really cool footage for you to see. We'll talk about the whole system that keeps it all up and running. I'm going to get my camera in the tank in a minute to show you some really cool underwater footage of trying getting them feeding right up close to the lens, like this big conger eel here and the bull huss. So yeah, it's going to be a video really worth sticking around to watch. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get on with it. Right, so for what I've got in here currently, well, as you can see, this conger eel here is the biggest fish I've currently got. I've also got two. I'm making jump then. There's the smaller one. I have had an eel in there bigger than that, which I just got rid of because it just outgrew it. It wasn't much bigger than that, but it was enough to make a difference where it was just starting attacking other fish. Well, that eel there was about, well, smaller than the other one when I first put it in. It's grown really well. And also, as you can see, there's two bull huss. There's a tub gurnard, a grey gurnard, a bass, and a dogfish, because you've got to have a dogfish in the tank. So, yeah, that's what I've got in here currently. But he's looking a bit hungry to me. They haven't eaten in about 2 or 3 days. I don't feed them every day. Because they're wild fish, they're not used to eating every day. But if you've got like a shop bought fish, you probably would have to feed them every day. But I think our next thing now is getting feeding. That's what I mean. I'm looking forward to putting a camera in there and trying to feed him up to the camera lens. That'll be quite cool. So, so yeah, let's get on with that. I think I'll get the camera reset up, my other GoPro on the stick, and see how aggressive they'll feed now. Because they're normally quite aggressive, especially the conger, as you could imagine, and the bull huss. Before I started feeding them, I just thought I'd show you, in case any of you are wondering why I did feed them, was when I'm fishing and I've literally got a tiny bit of bait left over, like where there'd be like 2 squid or half a mackerel or anything. I'll just keep, like there's a few mackerel in here that have been defrosted a couple times. There's a few squid. And you can see there's just a fillet of a mackerel that I cut a bit off and just didn't use, so I just froze it back down. And also a couple sardines. So I've got the camera set up in there. I'm gonna hit video on that now, hit record, cut a bit of this up, and I don't think it's gonna take long. I know that conger's interested, so I'll probably just dangle a whole mackerel and see what he does to it. And hopefully get some good footage on the camera now, in the water. Let's have a see. To start off, just to see what that conger does. You're gonna knock my camera in a minute, that huss. What's he doing? Anyway, to start off, I'm going to well, for some reason this huss is going to knock, he's trying to knock my camera in the tank, I think, the whole thing. Right, so now I've got that camera set up in there. What I'm going to, look at him. The huss was biting the conger then. But I'm going to dangle this mackerel, well, this mackerel flapper in the tank and see if I can get a good reaction. I'm just going to step up on these steps here because I'm not tall enough. We reacted to that then. Well, the girder's got the other side. No, you let go of it. No. Well, they got a fillet each anyway. They love mackerel. That huss is, we tried nicking it off him. But I'll chuck a few chunks in now. I'll just move out the way a minute. Whoa. Please, yeah, that would have been on in the shop. Conger kicking right off out there. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to literally just chop up a mackerel into, well, just going to rip it up and just chuck in a few chunks. Good old mackerel. So you're going to just turn that camera down. Well, congers are fighting over that. Now I've got to be fair, out of all the baits I've put in this tank, mackerel is the one they go for the most. Even when I had cod in here, which you'll see in a bit when I put other clips in, is that, like even the cod, everything goes nuts for mackerel. I just put mackerel in, the bass is taking it straight away. 2 bits of sardine, nothing touched them. Still nothing. It just goes to show sometimes that mackerel, you just cannot beat it. I'm running out already. Running out of food. That's 3 mackerel gone now. Just like that. See if that conger picks up any of that. Using the huss here. You can do in the spin, look at that conger spinning. Ripping bits off the head. It's biting the conger's tail. You can see his belly's getting big now. Let's see if he can take a squid. Whoa. He's got the mantle stuck on his bottom lip. He can't, you got it? Yeah, he's got him. He had his mouth inside the squid. Right, so that's that done. That's 3 mackerel, or 5 squid, and a sardine. So you can see how much bait you'd actually go, well, how much food you go through if you had to buy it. So I just use old fishing bait because it's just, may as well. Yeah, that's a little bit on feeding. Well, I'm going to go and wash my hands, and I'll bring you back now for a closer look in the actual setup of the whole tank. So yeah, I'm going to leave these guys eat the rest of their food because I have eaten more squid. And yeah, go and wash my hands because they're minging. Well, I just watched that clip back then. That conger soaked the outside of the tank in that wool when it went crazy. But that's just standard. They do it all the time. When I had the codling in here, I had 3 codling about that sort of size at one point, which you'll see in a minute. And they absolutely soaked it. Pretty much every time they ate, they just soaked the place. They went crazy. But anyway, the next thing I want to show you is the main system underneath the tank that keeps a tank of this size running. But what I wanted to do before I show all that to you is just give you a quick mention that I'm not a professional or an expert when it comes to tanks of this size. I mean, I've always had tanks since I was a kid, but not to this extent. So when me and my dad wanted this size tank, we obviously always best to speak to professionals. So there's a shop in the Bendricks, which is just outside the Barry. And there's a shop there called Rocks and Critters. If you're local, you'll know about the Atlantic Calf. Everyone knows the Atlantic Calf around here. It's literally directly opposite them. And they are extremely, extremely helpful in there. Any questions you have to ask. And they are so professional, it's amazing. It's just to see the setup in there. Even if you're passing, just pop in for a look, it's amazing. So they are really helpful. We went in and they just give us a rundown of everything we needed for a tank of this size and exactly how to position everything, which I was going to show you in a minute. And yeah, I just wanted to give them a quick mention because they are really helpful. Really, really, really helpful. So yeah, if you are sort of interested in doing something like this in your own house, then they are the people to speak to. They're really good. And then, like I said, I'll put their website link in the description below, so you can check their website out. And like I said, if you're passing, make an effort and pop in to see the shop because it's amazing. And ask them to give you a little walk around. It's really cool, all the stuff they have in there. more tropical fish. But yeah, it's really cool place to go and have a look at. So yeah, I'll give you a quick look at all this now. Right, so first things first, I'll show you the sump tank, which currently is full of loads of little mullet, as you can see. There's a little green eel here, that little eel there, you can see them. There's a few little rockling in there. There's even an oyster that I found. That was from East Aberthaw actually, that oyster, when I was smooth on fishing. Yeah, a lot of little mullet in here. But the main reasons for the sump tank is there probably is, but like I said, I'm not crazy knowledgeable with it in depth. So the rough reasons now is for having a stock of water. So when the main tank runs low, it pumps water out of here to restock the main tank. And also I'm using it to hold the protein skimmer. Now the protein skimmer, I mean, this does need emptying. So if there's any of you watching that know what you're doing, you'll know that this needs cleaning out this top section. But I thought I'd leave it for a minute just to show you. But basically this is to clean all the muck out of the water from the fish. So there's a little outlet here you might just be able to see. So it sucks water in from here and it creates like a little vortex, and it creates loads of really fine little bubbles that go up to the top. Now, when it sucks the water in, the little bubbles basically gather all the dirt in the water, or the muck, and it all sticks to the bubbles. It shoots up. And then, as you can see, that black layer along the top is all the muck that comes off the bubbles and basically creates like a froth along the top. So that is what a protein skimmer is for. It's just an added filtration system. Now, moving along, there's another pump in there, in the tank, in the sump tank, that pumps water out the tank and all the way over to the chiller, which is this thing. Now this is currently set around 14 to 15 degrees. In the winter I do knock it off because, as you can imagine, it just doesn't need it. And then that then pumps it. So basically it just pulls it through, cools the water down, pumps it back out through that other tube and then into the sump tank. And then there's this thing here, which is the main pump that drives like the whole system. So it drags water out the sump tank through this pipe to the pump, and then up and around here, and then that goes into the sand filter. So obviously it's just it's about halfway, 3/4 full of sand, I think it is, and obviously that just helps clean all the water, and then pumps it back out through this pipe here, and then up in here, and there's basically like a rectangle of tubing. Then there's one that comes off here and runs up the back. There's also another one that runs off it there and then up the side. Now they basically run up, there's that one there, and all the out feeds along the back. And the one on the right then comes up here and basically feeds the tank through the side. Now these are leaking slightly, so I've just wrapped some tissues around them to just dry it off and find exactly where it is to fix it. But then basically to push the water back out, there's this channel here down the back of the tank where there is an overflow. It overflows down here and then runs all the way along the back and then back into the sump tank. So that is basically how the whole system works in basic. That's not too in depth. I could have got a lot more in depth, but I don't know how to explain it in depth. So there we are. So yeah, it's a lot of gear to set it up, mind. All the pipe work. Now it took ages, but like I said, Rockin' Critters, they couldn't have been more helpful to set this all up. They were absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's the main setup anyway. Right, so as you've just seen, that is the main system to keep the whole tank up and running. Now, as you can see, the water has got quite a bit more murky since their feed, and there is a lot of little bits of food just floating around, tiny little bits. Now, a great fish to clean that up, from my experience, is mullet. But those little mullet in there, if I put half a dozen or a dozen, say, of them in there, they'd clean that out really quick. They'd eat it all up. But I think we all know what would happen if I filled that with little mullet. They wouldn't last long. Even if I put them in now, the fish are full, they'd still attack them. And I know that from experience, so I don't bother putting them in anymore. I used to have mullet, they were the same size as the bass, and even they used to get attacked. So I just took them out because they were just getting bashed about all the time. So what will happen now is all that water will end up getting pushed out the outfeed on the back right corner of the tank, and they'll all go into the skimmer, into the sump tank, which will then get sucked into the protein skimmer and give it all good clean. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. I think it's about 3 o'clock. Yeah, bang on 3 o'clock. I'll come in here about 6, 7 o'clock. If there's much left, I'll get a really fine mesh net and I'll just give it a good scoop around and just make sure everything's gone. Because if I haven't eaten it in a few hours, they tend to leave it. So yeah, that's the main sort of system and the feeding. And if you're wondering about filling it with salt water of this amount anyway, you can, like in Rock and Critters is where I get this from. I just get bags of salt there and you just basically mix that into fresh water, and then you leave it settle. There is a ratio, obviously. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I got these buckets where I fill them up and 2 buckets takes half of one of these bags. And I just mix up like 3 or 4 buckets worth and then top it up into the sump tank, which then will feed the big tank. So yeah, that's the main sort of system and the fish I've got currently. So now is quite an exciting bit to put on, is some of the feeding clips that I've had past. And if there is anything else that I think of saying, I'll bring it in between the clips. But here we are, some pretty cool feeding clips. Take a look at these. Cod don't like mackerel apparently. God. Well, as you've just seen, that is one of my most favourite all-time little videos I've ever taken, as you can probably tell. It's quite a cool video of those 2 codling going crazy on that mackerel flapper. And that other little cool little clip of all the fish just going crazy on all the food I put in, with like a mixed feed. But, whoa. Congers are going crazy in the rocks. But moving on next, I'll try not to do too much talking between the videos, but I wanted to explain things before. So next coming up now is feed the congers by hand. There was one conger that I had before this one come in, and it was the one that sort of grew a little bit too big where it started getting aggressive, so I took it out and put it back. And I used to hand feed it up in this corner. Every time I used to open the lid, I used to just swim up to the corner and I used to hand feed it. And also I used to hold Joey mackerel and stuff. So here's a bit of footage of me hand feeding congers on the surface. You heard of carp feeding and mullet feeding on the surface, but I doubt you've ever heard of congers feeding on the surface. Take a watch of these clips. Right, well that's something you don't see every day, is it, everyone? Conger eels feeding off the surface. But it's, anything's possible when you've got a fish tank and you train them up. But moving on next is one of my all-time favourites, and that is when I had a big ballan wrasse in here. And as you can imagine, they absolutely love to crush up crabs. So I used to go down and pick little hardback crabs and drop them in, and he used to absolutely love them. It was one of his favourites. And also as a video, I tried hand feeding the conger a squid, and the ballan wrasse decided it wanted that squid. And just take a listen to the noise. I mean, keep an eye on it and listen out for the noises of those teeth, the wrasse used to absolutely just, it sounds like a hammer hitting a stone. It's crazy. Just keep an eye out, especially when it takes that squid, the noise it makes when it's biting it. But that was a cool fish I had in here. Got a little small hardback and a ballan. Don't know if you'll see it. There we go. Gone. He knows as soon as that lid slides over. Just go with a squid. Oh, never mind. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? The ballan wrasse absolutely demolishing those crabs. But I'm obviously assuming you could hear those cracking sounds of it as it was crushing up the crab and that squid. That was crazy sounds. At one point I did have a few smaller wrasse in here, and I used to drop in crab and stuff, and the noises from them all, like just smashing up all the food. It's crazy. But moving up now is a couple little feeding clips of just a bit of a mixed species feeding. And then at the end of them, there is a spotted ray. I think it was a spotted ray, if I remember right. Basically, the way it's feeding, I couldn't believe when I first seen it. I just about got it on film. And there was a fillet mackerel with the head still attached. And the ray came up, swallowed the fillet of the mackerel, the one side, but couldn't get the head in his mouth. So obviously he had to part that head off the fish. So the way it was shaking around to rip off the meat off the rest of the fish was crazy. Take a watch of this. Well, I mean, you'd never expect a ray to feed like that, would you guys? But I suppose out in the wild, they got to make the most of every feeding opportunity they get. So whenever on fit in their mouth in one go, they got to rip it up somehow. I mean, they haven't got hands and knives and forks like we have. But the video is coming to an end now. But I've saved one clip. I've held one back because I want to put it right at the end, and it's my all-time most favourite clip. And that is when I had the big ballan wrasse and 3 cod in here at the time. I think I had the ray in here as well then, but the cod and the wrasse specifically, I went out and caught a load of little sand smelts, and then I kept them live in a bucket and I dropped them all in, and we can all imagine what a load of predatory fish will do to little small live fish. So I'll put that in a minute. But one thing I haven't mentioned is the actual dimensions of the tank. And now it's 7 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, and it's made up of 15mm glass, and it's got a little lip going around the tops, and it's got one bar going across the middle of the top to obviously strengthen it all up. And lid wise, we bought this second hand, so we didn't have any lids on it at the time, So I had 2 stainless sort of frames welded up, and then I put some netting on there to obviously stop the fish jumping out, because they will, and they have, when I first bought the tank. And that wasn't a nice find the next day, but I've moved on since then. I've moved on. So yeah, no more fish getting out anymore. And the stand also came with it. There is doors to go on, but as you can imagine, this room, I mean, this room now is sort of like a part of the garage. So with this in here, it's quite a damp room. So I don't really want to put doors on the frame yet, because I think it's going to hold a lot of moisture in underneath and get to the woodwork on the frame. But it'd be a very big deal to have this set up in your house, I think, with all this equipment and obviously the sump tank, and keep it on top of all the damp coming away from it as the water evaporates. So yeah, it'd be a big deal to have that in your house, I think, inside. But yeah, I think that's about it for today. Like I said, if you guys want to see anything specific, I'll do my best to go out and catch it to put in here. And when I do, I'm thinking of soon of taking a few fish out, possibly the eels and the huss. So yeah, I'll probably leave one huss. I love them. They are pretty cool. The gurner's going to stay in here, I think. The bass, I don't know, I might take him out. And when I do stick new stuff in, I'll do updated videos every now and then. And keep an eye in the shorts as well. I'll put a few videos in my shorts, little clips of them feeding. So keep an eye. It's something I'm going to bring in a bit more off the channel. So after I call this a quit now, I'll put in the clip of the codlin and the Baden wrasse feeding. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything, like I said, if there's anything you want to see, let me know. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this. I've enjoyed making this video, something a bit different for my channel. Something you guys are going to see more regularly as well now, as it changes through the year. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed. So as usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Keep an eye on these codling in this wrasse. It's a clip worth watching. Got some smell.
See? Oh, what's this? Oh, he's got it. Over his mouth.